Revit, Projects and Materials. I'm Sherry Reitzel. Let's get started. Hi everyone, this is lesson number 2 for our Revit training while I am away this week, and so I'm hoping that these videos are helpful to you. My goal today is to show you a variety of little things that you might not necessarily know that will completely help you with both your corporate project and for your project in the welding space at the college for our illustration class. And so I'm going to go through all of these things quite quickly. And speed up your workflow, I would say. So what I would like you to do is get somewhere on a plan like I am, that we're going to be drawing a few walls and setting ourselves up to understand some of the really cool things that Revit has. And so we'll start by just creating a simple architectural wall. And I'm just going to use a basic generic wall and go up, doesn't even matter, 5 feet or so. And I'd like you to go across quite a distance so we can play with a few things here and just create a U-shaped space for me. Now, the first thing I want to show you is how to use, I kind of touched on this in class, but how to use offset for walls, which will be really useful for corporate. And so the offset command is one of our modify commands that you see in our panel here, and we want to play with a few of these here. So offset looks like that. It's located right here. It has many, many, many uses. We can use it for lines, rectangles, walls, or a variety of things. And so we're going to click offset. And if I know, for example, that I want my walls to be spaced 8 feet apart, I'm going to set my offset distance at 8 feet. And I'm simply then going to hover over the walls that I would like to be offset. And you'll notice how it literally takes that whole area and offsets it. Now, what if that wall actually had a door in it? I'm going to place a door in one of the walls. And now I'm going to try the offset command again. When I choose on that door, under modify, offset, and you'll notice it literally takes the wall with whatever's on the wall, including the door, and continues to copy that over. It's a beautiful tool. Now for this next section, I want to play with the mirror command in 2 ways, and I also want to play with the align command. And so to set ourselves up to see what this actually does, I'm going to get you to go ahead and insert a couple of components. Doesn't matter what they are. Tables, maybe a desk. I'm going to throw a desk here. There's a desk, and maybe perhaps a chair. Let's see what I have. I don't have any other things in here, so I'm just going to do a second desk. Okay, kind of spread them apart so you can see what happens here. Now, the first one we're going to use is the mirror command. And so what we'll do for that is I'm going to increase the size of this wall. I went on an angle. Let's try that again. Just by grabbing on this end grip and going straight across. And so my goal would be, what would I need to do? Let's say I want to add a door right here. And let's say I have another wall that's coming perpendicular from this point and heading up. Now the beautiful part of mirror is it doesn't just work with lines that we create, but it also works with anything that it can use as a pick axis point. So there's 2 kinds of mirror. The first kind is called pick axis, and the second kind is just draw the axis. We're going to try the pick axis one. So the first thing that you need to do is select the object that you wish to mirror. Second thing you want to do is select pick axis. And so I'm going to use that new wall that I drew as my axis to my mirror point. So as I come along the wall, you'll notice I hover and it gives me a midway point, and then boom, that door will mirror itself over, space itself equally opposite that wall, and it's this wonderful way to add all of your doors across a whole bank of offices, for example. The other thing we can use mirror for by drawing our axis would be for furniture. So if this is going to be my object that I wish to mirror, I can choose by drawing the axis where I want that to be for me to actually mirror that desk and keep both desks that would be opposite each other. So again, it might be good for chairs or things like that. So it's a wonderful command. So I do encourage you to try it. Now watch this one though. This is called the align command. I'm going to rotate one of these desks, okay? Let's say I know I had a certain angle or I had a wall that was at a certain angle. I'm just going to move this desk a little bit over here. Now what align will do is it will take any endpoint, midpoint, or snap point and take any other object and line it up. So if I was trying to line an object up with a wall or another piece of furniture, it works really well that way. Align is located right to the left side of offset. So here it is. We click align. We find the first point is the stationary one, the thing that we don't wish to move, the thing that we wish for the other object to align to. So I'm going to align this table to the midpoint of this table. So the first point I'm going to pick is the midpoint of this table. So it gives me a guideline. The second thing I'm going to pick is what do I want to align to that? Do I want this edge to align to it or do I want the middle to align to it? Well, I'm going to choose the middle. And look what happens. Those two midpoints line up quite beautifully. Let's try that one more time. This time I'm going to align something to the edge of this wall. All right, so I choose the edge of the wall as my guide point, and then I'm going to try to align this line of the table to the edge of that wall. And notice how that table went right into place, aligned to the edge of the wall, and kind of snapped itself into place. A very, very cool tool. Now next we want to learn about two super great things. One is called split element and one is called split face. I'm going to hover over the split element area here. The first one we see on the left is split element just as a hair point. It just cuts it right at that wall area. And the one beside that is to split it and create a gap, which can be useful when you're trying to separate your walls. The second one I want to show you is the split face tool, which is, I'm hovering over it right here. Let me explain the difference. The split element tool will literally cut your wall so that you can create new wall types within one wall. For example, this long wall here could be a section of wall, then glass, then wall, then glass, then wall, then glass. The split face tool allows you to split the wall so that I could have 2 different or 3 different or 4 different materials on a wall. So it's more of a surface thing. So let's start with our split element. Now watch what happens. I'm going to use this wall. We get this exacto knife that appears. Love it. And so let me hover, say 3 feet above. I'm going to cut it. And then I'm going to continue to do that. So I'm going to hover again above that one. You're basically just kind of hovering until you get the right spot. So 3 feet, click, hover again, 3 feet, click, and I'll do it one more time. Actually, I'll just do 2'6". Now, because I've split this wall into many types, well, that gives me the opportunity to take a section of wall, and for that one, I might decide, okay, I would like to change that to a curtain wall. And so I'm going to do that. Good. And for this one, same thing. I would like to change that also to a curtain wall. And so that's a really easy way to do that, where I can have one wall that I draw in the first place, but then I divide it all up through split face. Now I'd like you to try the split with gap on your own. Give that a go. It's not something that I use very often, but it works in the exact same way. Now if I go to the view menu right now and go into a 3D view mode, and I'd like you to also, in the 3D view mode, kind of go to that area we just built that has the wall and the glass and so forth. And I think what I need you to do for this is go to one of your elevation views by using your view cube. That's the easiest way to do that. So here we are. And finally, I'd like you to go to the bottom of your screen under the visual style section and choose realistic so that we can really see what this actually does. Okay, so back to modify we go. We're going to go to that split face area, click it. And the first thing it wants to know from us is, okay, well, which face do you want to split? So you'll notice as I'm hovering over these faces, the outline is turning blue to accept it. So I'm going to hover over this one, choose that face, and that enables that face, and it allows me to now split the face in some way. So you have to split the face in one of 2 ways. Either you draw a line directly through it left to right, top to bottom, where it actually hits an edge, or you do it by putting a rectangle in the middle of some sort. Okay, I'm going to do the rectangle way right now. I want you to try both on your own, and I'm going to draw a rectangle right in the middle of that wall and finish it and hit the check mark. Now what just happened here? It literally took that one face and divided it into two. So under the modify command, you'll notice my paint area right here that we've done before. And so I'm going to take a material here and paint that with it, and another material over here and paint the other surface with it. And you'll notice that I now have two materials on one wall. This is really useful for backsplashes, just any area where we need a couple of materials. So that really helps with that. Okay, now while we are on paint, I'd like to actually talk about paint and the steps that are involved with really working with materials within Revit, adjusting materials. I'm not going to get into everything about materials this week because we're going to do that together when I'm back. This is really only meant to be the equivalent of a 90-minute class, and it's quite a bit more material that I'm giving you. So, but I do want to touch on it so you can at least get started with your materials for a couple of your renders, okay? So let's work together on this. When we are creating materials for our project, we literally have to do just that. We have to place the materials that we want from Autodesk and put them essentially into our project. So the first place we need to go is the Manage dropdown, Manage tab. So we're going to go to Manage, and we're going to look for the button that says Materials. Now notice, this is Manage Materials. This is how we create materials, duplicate materials, bring materials into our project. That is the first thing we need to do in order to have materials, or else we're basically not going to have any. So let's go Manage Materials. Cancel that. And we're brought to basically a material window that will appear. Here it is. Now, one of the things that does happen to some students is when this, there we go, when this window appears, they're not seeing what I'm seeing. They're seeing only the materials there. If that happens to you, this little button that I'm hovering over right here, it shows or it hides the Revit materials below. So that does need to be selected in order to see all of the material options that we actually have. So here's how this goes. I'm going to click on flooring, and I'm going to look at what I have available. Now, if I decide I want to have some sort of concrete or vinyl look or bamboo, if I want it in my project, I hover over it and I either drag it up in, or I click the arrow. Boom, added to my project. Cork tiles, added to project. I've already got it, so that's great. I must like that. Let's look at the glass options that we have. Ooh, we have bronze glass. Let's add it. It's pretty cool. Let's go into the metals. Oh, neat. Oh, there's another really neat one. Love that. Going to add it into my project. I need you guys to literally go through and begin to add those materials into your project till you get the ones that you really, really love. Now, when you find, let's say I've got a paint here. I'm going to add it to my project. Oh, it's already there. When you find that you have a material that you like it, but you need a few more options of it in different, different varieties, then you can definitely look for that. Now I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to look for that actual paint one. Wall texture. Okay. I can go and click on any of the materials and go to this bottom circle here and go ahead and duplicate that selected material. And so I'm going to call this duplicated material white texture wall. Okay. Now they're identical. They're both green. They're both edited. But now that I've duplicated that material, I can go in and check out all of the information about that material. So let's look at a few things that we have here. We get the identity. We can look at the graphics. There's no patterns that are being used for this. It's just a simple, there's nothing happening graphically. The appearance is generally the color, okay? And so for this one, I can click on that color, and I'm going to change this one to sort of a darker green and go from there. And you'll notice that it updates for that new material. But hold on, there's a catch. Did you notice that as we changed one material, it actually changed both of the materials. And so that's not what we want. Don't want to duplicate the material and then it just actually connects to the other one as well. So here's where we need to go to fix that problem. If you go to the appearance of that new duplicated material, you'll notice that it is currently in a state of connectivity with the original material. What we need to do as an additional step is to duplicate the asset so that it separates itself. Instead of replace the assets, we duplicate that asset. It will separate itself from that original one, and we can come back to that first material that we had created and go back to that original color that we had, or a completely new color altogether. So keep that in mind. When we want to have something that we've duplicated, let's do it one more time. We're going to right click on the material and duplicate it. We're going to give it a new wall. We're going to call it blue. I love how my green wall says white. Blue texture wall. And we're going to give it a new name. That's wonderful. Blue texture wall. We're going to ensure then that we hit duplicate this asset, and then we can go in and continue to change the color to something more in the blue family. And there we have it, and apply and OK. Okay, so this is the basic sort of information about creating materials that you want. We need to bring the materials into our model. We can duplicate those materials and create other materials from that. We will learn how to even, in class next week, even add more to that than we know right now. Now that we've made those under the Manage menu, we're going to go ahead and go to Modify. Just going to go into 3D here. There are two ways that we can actually paint the materials. It depends on the asset itself. And so the easiest way is to go to Modify, choosing our Paint button, choosing the material that we have created through our Manage tab, and simply clicking the surface that we want to paint. Here's where it gets challenging. Two ways that it gets challenging. Sometimes the material itself can't necessarily be painted that way, but rather it needs to be painted by clicking on the parameters or the detailed information that's in the type of the object itself. So if I'm into this wall structure, for example, and that's where I need to actually change it, the finish. Sometimes with doors that's the case. If I click on a door and edit the door type, I'm going to just find one where it's actually showing me the finish inside the object itself. And so I'm going to go into the door material, for example. And you'll notice that for this asset, the door material happens through hitting Edit type. Okay, so this is where I would assign a specific wood to the door, like glass or a different kind of wood or something that doesn't exist there right now. Now, while we're in there, I do want you to notice one thing under the Graphics menu for materials. Not only does it have a sort of a physical rendered material in this menu, but I can also assign a hatch pattern to a material. What does that mean for me? Well, that means that if I'm in a hidden line mode and I'm in a construction elevation and I've decided to paint all of my kitchen cabinets wood, and I want that to look wood in the rendering but hatched in the line drawing, well, I could assign a line drawing hatch. That's how I basically apply hatch, is by material. So just kind of note that and remember to ask me if that doesn't make sense as well. Okay, so we can go ahead and paint materials, or we can also go into the object itself and change through the edit type on the material in order to make that happen. So now you can go ahead and have a lot of fun painting, and next we'll talk about how to render that. Okay, I'm going to quickly show you how to actually get a render that's half decent out of Revit itself. Now, shortly, we'll be going ahead and using Enscape to do many of our renders, but let's actually just try a Revit render. Some of them can be quite beautiful. And so in order to get the best bang for my buck here, I'm going to quickly add a floor. I went architecture floor. I'm going to use a rectangle for my floor to draw my floor. And I'm just going to pull out a large rectangle here, something big so I can feel like I'm in the room. Great, hit the check mark. Awesome. I'm not even really worried about the type of floor. I'm going to go ahead and add a couple extra walls. So we'll start one from here and here. I'm just basically trying to enclose the space so it kind of feels like, it's going to have a bit of a feeling. And I'm going to add a couple of windows so I can get some natural light in as well. So let's go to window. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and add a ceiling on this. Well, yes, I will. I'll go to ceiling. I'm going to ceiling plans of the same floor plans. There's my floor plan main floor. Now I'm on my ceiling plan main floor, and I'm going to go ahead and go architecture, ceiling, which I'm going to talk about a bit next, and I'm going to hit sketch the ceiling. And just to do such a simple ceiling, I'm going to have it be a generic ceiling. The height offset is going to be at 8 feet, that's no problem. And I'm going to do a rectangle. Just like the floor, I'm going to draw a ceiling there, boom, and hit accept. Okay, there it is. And yes. Okay, why is it not letting me? It's kind of freezing. Okay. There it is. Now that ceiling isn't showing up on my ceiling plan simply because it will in my 3D view, simply because I think my wall heights are, yeah, there it is. 8 feet on a 10-foot wall is like the limit of where you can go. And so if I want to see that on my ceiling plan, I'm just going to raise that ceiling height just a little taller because it's basically past my cut line, essentially, is all that's happening there. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do just prior to actually rendering this. I'm going to get a couple of components in the space. I have nothing that great here. I'm on my ceiling plan, sorry. Maybe I've got some furniture in here. Let's go to the main floor, bring in a component. I just want you to see kind of what that would look like. And I'm going to look for that desk again, I think. Get that on the floor. And here's what we're going to do. I think I also want to paint the floor with something, but what we're going to do is we're going to use our view menu, and rather than do an elevation or section or 3D view, we're going to do a camera view. So we're going to go to the down arrow and use our camera view. And so with camera view, we start where we want to stand and we stretch out into the room on an angle how we want to see it and click. What appears for us then is a perspective view. I can kind of zoom out here, perspective view of our space in some way. Now, where did that appear in my project browser? Well, that came into my 3D views now. So it's a whole other area of things that I could add to my title block. And so I'm going to call that first view junk view because it is. And I'm going to adjust it just a little bit by extending these windows so I can see more of the space or whatever. And also, I'm going to change my visibility to realistic, which it's not yet, but I want to get rid of that. I don't want to see the edge of that too much. I don't know, something like that. I think also I'm going to turn my sun on down here, and I'm going to use the specified location time, blah, 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 which gets dark here, but it's going to make for a better render. And I'm going to turn my shadows on in my space. So even though that gets dark, those are the things you want to click to set yourself up for a render. Now, render is located under view as well. So let's click the render button right now. This is a little bit of trial and error at times, like it is for all illustrators. But I'm going to go into maybe a medium view just so you can see it. This is where you decide, do I want sun or sun and artificial lights as well? We haven't added any lights to this yet. So I would say we're just going to do interior artificial only. Sorry, I meant sun only. That's what we're dealing with. Or you might also try an exterior sun only. It's not on the outside, but we might get a better effect that way because we do have a completely open wall. So when you're ready and you want to play with some of that, let's hit render, and then we're just going to watch what happens here. Okay, so this is basically how my render turned out. Keep in mind one thing. We don't even have lights in this space yet. I didn't paint the floor with any material yet. We can just see that it kind of cleans up the edges. And that was with an exterior view as well. So what I would like everyone to try is to just kind of go through the lights that are in Revit and begin to try adding those lights and follow along in your textbook with putting those in the ceiling. And you'll notice that just the more lighting you have, not like more is better, but the more accurate you are with how your space would be with lighting, lighting, the more accurate your render will be. Now, I do want to point something out here in your image. You can, even after it's rendered, adjust the exposure or the highlights or the shadows or the saturation or a variety of things as well. You'll see what happens there. I'm going to go a little darker and apply that. And so we do have another chance at this, right? And so after we do a render, we definitely want to play with that. And of course, we do want to go into post-production and Photoshop our images as well. So that's really important to note as well. Do play with that. That's where that is all located. And just to remember, your views are in your 3D view area in your project browser. Now, my final thing that I want to say is this: when you're doing your ceiling plans, adding your ceilings is pretty straightforward. We can use our ceiling button, and if you have special things going on in your ceiling, areas that are lower than other areas, and so forth, it's simply a matter of using your tools, your drawing tools for that. So if I was drawing a ceiling that sort of dropped down from here and went to there, I would use a rectangle to do that, and I would tell it how far off the floor it needed to be. Maybe it needs to only be 7 feet from the floor for that area. And then I would finish that. And that would go ahead and create that for me. And then I would do another ceiling area. And in theory, I just don't have my height set up right, so bear with me. It's just something in my elevations. But you can go area by area using lines. If I was doing something with lines, and maybe that would be a special drop down area as well, and maybe that would be at 10 feet. And I would accept that. Okay, and so basically with ceilings, what I want everyone to do is to be using the ceiling drop down, adding your lights from the component library, and if you don't find lights that you need, or you can't get information you want necessarily from your ceiling plan for at least this hand-in of the plan, I want you to please not forget that your annotate menu and your detail line menu is another way that we can really focus on getting the ceiling plan done. It's possible for you to, in fact, draw circles and copy those circles and dimension them, and those could be your lights. It's possible for you to annotate a variety of rectangles or interesting shapes for bulkheads. You know, you might have an area here that's some sort of interesting drop-down area for the ceiling, or another one happening here that can be communicated to me in a very clear way. So we can do that. We can edit the different line thicknesses. That could be a, let's go back to that. Where am I? Detail line. One line could be a dashed line. One line could be a thicker line. And so please don't forget the different types of lines that we have as well. So I'd like you to try adding your ceilings as ceilings, adding lights as actual lights. But if you struggle at all for some of these really interesting details, then I want you to go ahead and do some annotative line to illustrate that. For some of you, and I know some of you are definitely trying to do some really complicated things, listen. Some of that really complicated stuff may have to wait till the final hand-in. See how it goes. But, you know, what's really due here would be the banner, a couple of images, and then all of the plans. So that's it for me today, guys. Good luck with that. I hope that you enjoy the video and that it's very clear. And we will see you guys next week. Email me if you have any questions. All right, bye.